Hey guys, what is up? This is Kazi from cleverprogrammer.com and you are watching Codecademy Python part 16. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's 16 for sure. Okay, so let's get started. Yeah, this is getting complicated, guys. I tell myself I have to remember it's part 15 or part 16 and then I forget. So we're getting far along. That's a good thing. And you're getting far along. That's even better. I'm excited for you if you've gotten to part 15. Okay, so don't tap yourself on the back yet. Do it maybe at the end of this tutorial. Hopefully we'll finish all of this and get started on battleships. So they want us to do a lot of things here. So they showed us two methods to print out items from a list, which is exactly what I showed you guys in the last video, remember? So that's what they're effectively doing here. Either just make that, access that element directly, right? That definition of item came up, of distinct physical object. So either access that item in a list directly or access it using its index. And then you can call the list and pass in the index when you're indexing the list, and then get access to each element that way. Method 1 is useful to loop through the list, but it's not possible to modify the list this way. So so that's true. You can't actually modify the list this way. If you want to modify the list, you have to know the index of that element, and then you can change that index. Okay. For example, if I get access to this element directly, let's say I'm looping through for item in n, print or n, I don't know, let's say item equals item plus 1, and then I don't know, I print out n. 3 is still 3, even though I told 3 to increment itself by 1. But what actually happened is that this list got passed in. We got a 3 just by itself. And then it went, okay, the new definition of item is equal to what item was, 3 plus 1. So now item is 4. And that variable item is just a variable by itself. It's not really connected to the list in any way. So what you want to say here is for I in range len of n, this translates to 0, 1, and 2. I've already shown you how that works, but just to kind of reiterate, len of n, this is 357. Well, length of 357 is simply 3. Range of 3 gives you a list that's like this, with 3 elements in it. Okay, and then I will say n of I equals I plus 1. And now if I print n, you'll see this will be 4, this will be 6, and this will be 8, just like here. Okay, make sure you really understand that concept. Okay, one loop you go through indices, and the other loop you go through the actual element itself. All right, so now they're telling us a lot of things to do. Create a function that returns a sum of a list of numbers. Okay, so it sums these guys and returns it. So define the function called total that accepts one argument called numbers. It will be a list, so we are expecting numbers to be a list. Inside the function, create a variable called result and set it to 0. Using one of the two methods above, iterate through the numbers list. So I'm going to say for I in range 0 through, and I'm just writing 0 just to be very verbose as to what I'm doing. It's not necessary at all. If I want to go one step further, I can even say start is equal to 0 and stop is equal to that. But I'm not going to go that crazy. Normal way would just be to pass in the length, but I'm going to just specify that, hey, I'm starting from 0. And I'm going to pass in len of numbers. which is whatever the list you pass that function. And we're going to say that for each number, we're going to add it to result. So I'm going to say result plus equals, or result is equal to result plus that list indexed by that index that we loop through. So, you know, this will be like first I will be 0th element, right? I will be the 0th element, and numbers of 0 will give you 3. Then I will be the second element in the list, that will be 1, and numbers of 1 might give you back 5. We're assuming that we passed in this list 2 numbers. And then it will be 2, so it will say at indice 2, give me what numbers is, and we'll get back 7, so on and so forth. I'll go through this algorithm really quickly with you guys after we're finished writing it. And then at the end, return result. Because I really want to make sure that there's not a single part that we're skipping over. Then create a function called total that adds up all the elements of an arbitrary list and returns that count. Using the existing code as a hint, use a for loop so it can be used for any size list. So this will work. Let's take it to the REPL and do print our function total. Let's pass in the list n, and let's run it. Let's see what it does. 3 plus 5 plus 7 is indeed 15, and that's what we got right over here. Okay, how did it work? Well, let's see. N is 357, passed in 357 to this guy, length of 357 evaluated to 3, range from 0 to 3 evaluated to 0, 1, 2. The first time in the loop, I is 0. Numbers of 0 evaluates to numbers evaluates to 3, 5, 7. This list indexed by the 0th element gives you back 3. Result is 0. 0 plus 3 gives you 3, and now result is 3. Then the loop happens again, and now this time I is actually 1. Numbers of 1 gives you back a 5 here. Result, which was 3 here, it's going to be 3 plus 5. 3 plus 5 is going to give you back 8, and now you're going to have 8 here. It's going to keep doing that until at the end, result will give you back 15. And then since that function returns 15, this whole thing gets evaluated to 15, and it prints it out to the screen, which is how you get to see it. And screen is, I think, right above me, so it gets printed out to the screen right there. Okay, all right. Another way to do this is just to get the element directly. Here it makes more sense to get it directly, so I would actually say for number in numbers, result is equal to result plus number. I think this is a much easier way to write this, and it's better for this one because we don't care about the indices. But let's go back to that because I think they're gonna make us use it. Using strings and lists and functions. Now let's try working with strings. So you can do the same thing and do that with strings as well. But you can't change values of strings because they're immutable. We'll find out what that means. Create a function that concatenates strings. So we're going to create a function that's going to keep looping through and adding the strings together. That shouldn't be that hard. If you guys really think about it, you can do it yourself. So take a stab at it first and then watch me do it. So I'm going to say define string adder, takes in list of strings, and what it will do is for each string in the list of strings, it's going to final string is going to be, I'm going to start it off as an empty string. So what it's going to do is every time it gets a string, I'm going to say that increment the final string by the final string plus the new string that we add. Okay, and then at the end I'm going to say return the final string. So let's create grocery list, let's say, or let's just say groceries is equal to banana, apple, avocados, maybe I misspelled that, and berries. Okay, and then let's say for oh, we don't have to actually write anything, we've already wrote it. Let's call our string adder function on groceries, and let's make sure to print that, and let's run it. Let's see what happens. And you get a banana, then it adds apple to it, and then it does all that. Okay, if I want to do it in a little bit of a better way, I can say add an additional space at the end of each one, so you'll get that space here, but you also get that space right here, which you don't really need, but it's still cool. You get these spaces here. Okay, how does this work? Well, let's go through it really quickly. So groceries is just that list. This gets passed into our function. Final string is just an empty string in the start. And then what we do is that for each string in that, so the first time string is banana, and final string is an empty string, and so it adds banana to that empty string. Now this empty string is banana, right? Banana. This whole thing actually translates to banana with a space at the end. So our final string is actually that. Then what happens is we get to the second element, apple. Actually, we gotta, yeah, this is gonna get tricky to do, but let's just go back. Okay, whoops, let's go back to the part where I had the list there. Cool. So the second element in the string is gonna be an apple. We have banana here, so I'm just gonna leave that. And then string is going to be apple. This part was banana with a space, and then we add empty space here, so this effectively turns into banana space apple space and end, and so then this guy is now that. Okay, and that's the way you get banana and apple, and then it adds avocados and berries, and then it adds a space at the end. Cool. Okay, so we created a pretty nice function, and that's effectively what they want us to do. So what I'm gonna say is I'm probably just gonna copy this guy and whoops, just copy this guy and maybe paste it here. The function is called join strings, so we're gonna say join strings, and what's the argument they want? Accepts an argument called words. So everywhere I have lists of strings, I'm gonna call it words, and for now this would make more sense to call it a word here. Word, no, actually, yeah, word. Inside the function, create a variable called result and set it to an empty string, iterate through the words list. That's exactly what they're saying, right? Create a thing called result and make it that. Instead of final string, call it result. Right. Okay. And iterate through the words list and append each word to result. And finally return the result. Don't add spaces between the joined strings. So we're not adding any spaces here, right? Otherwise I would do something like this, but I'm not. Cool. Okay. And it works. So you see Michael, and then it says Lieberman. Yeah. Okay. A little foreshadowing. I'm going to show you guys a really cool and advanced trick to do this. A cool way to join all the things in the list is actually to do this thing called .join and then pass in that list. So what this does is it joins all the items in the list by this thing here. So you can have this thing here be whatever you want. I'm gonna have it be a space. I'm gonna say print. So you're gonna see what I mean in just a second here. So you see it actually joined all the elements, right? Each element, banana, apple, avocados, berries, by this empty space here, because I said give it to me by empty space. Let's say I told it to join it by this, it would do just that. So this is kind of a nice thing to think about, because if you're like creating a game like rock, paper, scissors, maybe it's nice to have each thing separated and decorated in a way. So when somebody's playing your game, it looks nice, it looks formatted. Even if you're making just a text-based game, not, fancy graphics, you can still use these things to make it look nice. You can have rock with some spaces in between, and then scissors, so it looks nice and separated. Just some things to keep in mind. But this is a little advanced and cool trick to know about. Okay. Using lists of lists in functions. Cool. Let's get to that. Using two lists as two arguments in a function. So what does that even mean? Well, it's really quite simple. Okay, I'm going to define some function called join lists, and I'm going to say m comma n, and I'm going to do return m plus n. Let me show you guys something cool. Skip. So I'm just going to open up my idle here, which is the same thing as having my REPL open. But again, I just like to open up multiple things so you guys know that you can do things multiple ways. Plus, I'm just showing you in Python 2. So in Python 2 or 3 is actually the same thing. If you have two lists, you can just add them together. Plus 4, 5, 6. It just concatenates the lists together. That's it. Okay, pretty simple, right? So if you wanted to join lists, just use the plus operator. It knows what to do. It adds them together. And then just return it. So it's literally 2 lines of code. Oh, wow. They actually did the same example as us. I wasn't even thinking about that. That's hilarious. I didn't even read all of this. That's really cool. So let's run it, and you will see that that's what you got. Okay. You can call these variables here whatever you want, remember? Just as long as you are consistent. It should still give you back the right answer. I just called it M and N. You can call it P, Q, A, B, whatever you want, really. So let's take this code and put it in here, and let's just call it P, Q. And the only reason I'm calling it different than this is so you don't get confused and think, oh, these two things have to be the same as the parameters. No, they don't. It's Q. Okay, very easy. Start next lesson. Using a list of lists in a function. So now they're having you do 2 loops. What does this mean? All right, I'll show you just a second here. Okay, for list in list of lists, print list. So what they're doing is, let's say I gave you this list that contains how many elements? Take a guess. It contains only 2 elements. Okay, the first element in this list is this list here. This is the first element. And the second element in the list is this list here. Okay, so that comma is telling you, since there's only 1 comma separating these 2 items, it's telling you that there are only 2 items. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, we're gonna loop through. What we want to do is loop through this and print out all the items in the first list, and then continue looping and then print out all the items in the second list. How the heck would we do that? Well, first of all, let's just write for list and list of lists, right? This is a variable list of lists, list of lists. Let's run it. Let's see what it prints out. So effectively what it did is it passed, that is that. The first element is going to be 1, 2, 3. So this list comes 1, 2, 3, which is why up there you see 1, 2, 3 being printed out the first time, and the second time the second element is 4, 5, 6, and so it prints out 4, 5, 6, which is why you see that as well right up there. 4, 5, 6. Okay, but we want to print out 1, 2, 3 line by line, and then 4, 5, 6. How in the world do we do that? Well, let's try this. Let's say, how we would normally do that if we were just given one list. So let's say for item in 1, 2, 3, we would simply do print item, and that would give us 1, 2, 3. But here we have a list of lists. So the first time it's a little complicated, but it's actually quite simple because you're getting back a list, so you can still loop through that, right? So we're imagining that we get back, let's say 1, 2, 3. Well, you can do just that loop. So you can say for item in that list, print item. So what will the loop do? Here's what it will do. It will, list of lists is that. So the first time list is going to be 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3 for item in list. So for item in that list is going to be, the first item is going to be 1, or I'm sorry, 1 like that. And it's going to print out 1 to the screen. Then it's not going to go back to line 3. It's going to actually just keep traveling between line 4 and 5 till the loop here has ended. Okay, it's going to keep going like tick, 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 like that. Then it's going to go back to the outer loop on line 3. So next time the element is going to be 2. It's going to come down here, and since this variable is actually item, this is item. The second time in the loop, this is going to be 2. And it's going to print out 2, which is, you're going to get this. Then it's going to be, again, item, item. So both of these are going to be 3 the last time. And it's going to print out 3. Then it's going to see that this loop is over because this is finished. So it's going to go back up here. Okay. The outer loop is not over because it only became the first element. It now needs to become the second element. It needs to run through the second element. So now it's going to be for 4, 5, 6, right? Since this variable is LST or list, this is going to be the same thing. First, so now we come to the second for loop here on line 4. Item is going to be 4 the first time, and so we're going to print out 4. Then item is going to be 5. We're going to print out 5, and then item is going to be 6. We're going to print out 6. Loop is over, right? So this kind of thing goes away, and then we come to the outer loop, and Python realizes like, oh, we are done running through that outer list, and we're finished, and the program is going to be over at that point. Okay, so essentially what we did, just to recap, is looped through the outer list with the outer for loop, and then once we got the inner list, which was the first element, then we looped through the inner list till the inner list was completed. Then we went back to the outer list and checked, hey, are there any more lists in there to loop through? When we found another list, we went to the inner loop and kept looping through that inner list, okay? So enough of the theory. Let's check if it works. Let's run it. And you get back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whew. Okay, so it's called flatten. So here's what they want us to do. Create a function called flatten that takes a single list. and concatenates all the sublists that are part of it into a single list. So what we want to do is, since we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all of that, we want to be able to turn it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 into one list, okay? Even if we have 100 lists, we want to just turn all of that into one list. So flatten one argument called lists, and this is gonna be pretty simple, but let's go through what they're saying here. Make a new list called results. So this is gonna be an empty list, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna iterate through lists. So I'm gonna say for numbers in lists. That's what it says, right? Iterate through lists, call the looping variable numbers. So the looping variable can be anything. I'm gonna call it numbers here. This is gonna be lists. So for numbers in lists, now I'm gonna iterate through numbers. For number in numbers, for each number, append it to results. Results.append number. And then ultimately, I'm gonna say return results. Cool. I think there's an easier way to do this as well, which I'll show you guys after. Yes, we earned the badge. Lists and functions, we've completed it. Congratulations, we've completed this course. Epic. So now you can pat yourselves on the back. I know you've been like holding it in, right? Because at the start of the video, I was like, don't pat yourselves on the back. So go ahead and pat yourselves on the back. Relax, you know, stretch, whatever you have to do. Take a break, walk around, cool off your brain a little bit, and then come back because we're not yet done. So we're gonna go through it. Okay. How the heck did this thing work? This is the crazy thing about them, right? They show you all of this stuff and then they're not gonna explain how each step works. Because you could have just easily coded this by following their steps without even thinking how to do it. All right, so here's what's happening. We're creating an empty list. We loop through each element in that list. So let's say the first element is actually a list. So it would be better to call this variable list in lists rather than numbers, because that's silly. So the first time we loop through n, which is these lists right over here, right? This is a list containing lists. So the first time we loop through it, okay, let's just walk through it, okay? We call n here. All right, that's n. We pass that into our lists variable in our argument. Now we pass in list of lists. Again, this function took only one argument. Keep that in mind. This whole thing is just one list containing multiple lists inside of it. Result, boom, we initialized it to an empty list. So what we did is we did that. Okay, lists is now that thing. So for list in that, the first element is a list 1, 2, 3, and list is 1, 2, 3 here as well. Number, the first time we loop through is 1, and 1, we append 1 right here. Then the second time number is 2, it's 2, we append 2 right here. Then it's 3, right? This 3 right here. 3, 3, we append 3, loop ends. What do? We go to the outer loop. We change these variables back to what they were. Number, list, number, lists. Or sorry, that's list, this is list. Okay, now our inner loop ended, but our outer loop did not end because it only went through the first element. We still have one more element left. The second element in that is this guy here. So the first number in that list is 4. 4, we go up here, we append 4. Then the second element in that guy is 5, we go and we append 5. Then the next one is 6. we append 6, 7, results dot append 7, 8, right? Results dot append 8, and then it's 9, and results dot append 9. And it says return results. So this function actually gets evaluated to that. And then we call the print function on that list, and you see that output on the screen. Okay, so if I ran all of this, make sure to put parentheses there, and if I ran all of this, you see a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's how it actually worked. Now, why I said there's an easier way to do this is what I would do is very simple. I would say, instead of doing an inner loop, I would just say results.append. This gets a little bit complicated, but so I'm not going to do it. But it would essentially be element at index 0 plus the element at index 1. So element at current index basically plus element at next index. So what that means is in this giant list here, it would do current index. So let's say our index was at 0, because this list is at position 0, and this list this element here is at position 1. So what it would essentially do is that plus that, and this would automatically give you one list containing that. Okay, and it would just add it. Okay, and then at the end you could do results of 1 or results of 0 and get the final result. But that just actually that complicates it a little bit. However, that would save you kind of going through another inner loop, but you would have to do a different kind of loop for what I was saying, because you need access to the indices. So you actually need to do a loop with the range function. Okay, so hopefully you understand how that worked. Let's take a look at our course page. Because we're done with lists and functions, we're at 52%. Slowly but surely we're getting there. And we're gonna be at a really fun part in the next video. We're gonna be going through Battleship and how to create an actual game. How great is that? Then we have Unit 8 left. Unit 9 is gonna be awesome. Unit 10, I was thinking about skipping it, but I'm gonna do it last because it's not useful. So we're gonna actually get to more fun parts first. That's what that means for you. Other than that, that's it for this video, guys. You're watching Codecademy Part 16, right? This is Kazi from cleverprogrammer.com. Please subscribe. Please like the video if it really helped you. Share it with whoever you want, or maybe don't share it. Maybe that's your secret way of getting better at programming. Whatever's the case, I hope you're enjoying yourself more than anything else, and then I hope you're learning as well. Have a good rest of the week, and I will see you in the next video, Codecademy Part 17. Okay, take care.